Have you ever heard the saying that a Ford is going to drive you as far as a Bentley, or a Forever 21 wallet will hold the same amount of money as a Louis Vuitton wallet? A $50 watch will show you the same time as a $1,000 watch or a $10,000 watch? Well, if you did, regardless of what you believe, if it's true or not, there are watches that are so expensive. And the question is, what makes a watch so expensive? What makes a watch valuable? Well, I'm here to answer that question. But before we jump into today's episode, please do hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon so you turn on the notifications so you don't miss another video. When we're buying a watch, I think that everybody has somewhat of a checklist that they follow before they buy a watch. For some people is the movement, for some people is the finishing or the brand. And I'm here to tell you that all of those things together is what makes a watch valuable. And I think it would be fair for today's episode to compare some of the two most recognizable watches in the world from two different price points, and that will be the Seiko and the Rolex. Everybody's heard of these two brands, and I think it would be fair to compare them both because they both produce a lot of diverse watches, stainless steel watches, chronographs, and somewhat dress watches too. So I think it would be just fair to compare them both because it will give us a better understanding of what makes a watch so valuable and expensive. The first thing that I have on the list is the finishing. And I should probably combine the first and the second and say finishing and the metal or the material. They both per se use stainless steel, right? Stainless steel is very general when you say that or when you put that on a watch. But steel, as every other material, has different grades, and there's less expensive, there's more expensive, there's easier to work with, more complicated to work with, polishes differently and stuff like that. A Seiko is using a much cheaper type of material or much cheaper steel comparing to the Rolex. And if you've seen how a Rolex looks like, and a lot of people actually confuse it and they don't know exactly if that's steel. They say, man, it was shining so much, it looked like some type of silver, white gold, I don't know, something like that. And I'm here to tell you that it was stainless steel. This is one of the reasons. The material, the steel, is more expensive, and then it takes much more time and patience and just finesse to polish that or finish that look that a Seiko doesn't take the time to do it. The next up we have is the glass. Again, the glass comes in different grades. There's the Hesalite, which is used by the most lower end watches such as Fossil and Daniel Wellington and Michael Kors and whatnot. And then we have Hardlex, which is used more in Seiko, which is a little bit of a tougher material than the Hesalite. Hesalite scratches very easily, is more plasticky, and it doesn't have any resistance or durability. Hardlex is much tougher and it's much more resistant to scratches and pressure. And then we have the sapphire crystal, which is the most expensive crystal. It's the hardest to work with, and then therefore it takes more time and we pay more. Next up we have the movement, and this is a crucial, and this is one of the things that makes it the most expensive, and that is the heart of the watch. There's two of them, and mainly you see them in pretty much every watch, but that is the quartz movement and the automatic movement. For full details on the quartz and automatic movement, I made a video before, so I will link it in the description. Please go check that out, or I'll actually put it up here too probably. But quartz is a movement that doesn't require any special pieces or anything expensive. They mainly run off of a battery, and that is pretty much it. It's extremely cheap to produce. It takes very little time to produce, and then therefore it's very cheap to sell. An automatic movement runs off of a lot of gears and a lot of wheels and springs. So because of that, it's much more complicated. All of those pieces are much more expensive and refined, and it takes much more time to put them all together. So then therefore an automatic movement is much more expensive. And then on top of that, we put the next thing that I have on the list, that is the complications. So you take this automatic movement that is much more harder to build and to put together, and it takes a lot of time and finesse. Then you have the complications. So if you want to add to the watch such things as date or day and other complicated things, then all of these make the watch more expensive because it takes more time. You'll have to work around the movement to include a date window, a day complication, a month, annual calendar, moon phase. These are all very important things, and once they're added to the watch is much more expensive. Do you know why a lawyer is charging $500 an hour per se? Well, he's not charging you for 1 hour. He's charging you for 1 hour based off of all 6, 7, 8 years of study and then many years of experience. All of that combined is putting it to 1 hour to sit down with you. All of that combined is $500. So he doesn't charge you because he just wants to charge you $500. Same applies to watch manufacturers or Swiss manufacturers. That is because they've been through so many things over decades and centuries, especially the 70s. 70s were the toughest years for the Swiss manufacturers. A lot of them were on the edge of failing for bankruptcy. So all of those things or tough times that they've been through and they finally managed to get to where they are now, you don't pay because it took them 2 months to build that Rolex. That Rolex doesn't cost $10,000 to make. No, I don't know how much it costs, but I know it doesn't cost $5,000 to make. So why would they charge $10,000 to sell it to you? Well, it's because of all of those years combined of tough times. But those times, they've survived them and they are where they are now through, you know, tons of good and bad decades and centuries, and all of that experience put together brings up the value of the watch that you want to buy now. There's one more reason that I don't know how logical is it, and it's not necessarily because of the Swiss manufacturers or the watch manufacturers why a watch is more expensive, but this reason is also very important to keep in mind, and that is because of the gray market. So again, if we're looking at a Rolex that costs $10,000 this year, if you look on Chrono24 or on a secondary market, it might go for $18,000, $20,000, various prices, but sometimes it's even double the price. So if next year Rolex is going to introduce to us a new Submariner with a little bit of tweaks and redesigned, as they call it, they will not charge $10,000 for it. Due to inflation and due to gray market, they'll probably charge $12,000 for it. And that being done every single year, we get to where we are now, and we can only imagine what's going to be in the future. So this is probably the last reason on why a watch is so expensive, but this is not the number one thing. The number one thing, again, if we are to summarize them all, is the finishing and the material, the metals, the leather, all of these put together. The next thing is the movement. Again, it's much harder to work on automatic movement. The next step is the complications. The more complications you add to that movement, to the watch, the more expensive the watch becomes. And the last one is the experience that you're paying for, because they've been through so many things, and all of those things put together is what made that Rolex or that Omega or Patek or any watch that you want to buy now. So all of these things together make that watch that you are asking yourself, why is it so expensive? I hope I answered the question clearly. I hope these things make sense, and whether you understand that or whether you change your mind now and you will support the watchmaking industry or not, it's totally up to you, but I hope this makes it a little bit clear on why some people justify paying that ridiculous price. Alright, thank you so much for watching, guys. Please do hit that like button. It really helps the YouTube algorithm, and it basically tells the YouTube that, hey, we like what this guy is doing, and YouTube's like, okay, and sends my video out to other people. It really helps the channel out. Hit the subscribe button and comment down below what you think of the style of this video. What do you guys think of what makes a watch so expensive? I'd really like to hear. Take care.